Hey, it's Paul Banis with GreatDad.com here with my weekly series talking to dads about all different subjects. And we have another angle here. We get a lot of different angles on fatherhood. And we've got a productivity specialist with us today, Mike Strucheski. I think I've got that right. After many practices, is going to help us maybe understand a little bit more how productivity relates to your work, but also to parenting and fatherhood. So welcome, Mike.
First of all, it's Mark, but thank you.
I've got Mike copied from the other thing, but that's okay. Okay, Mark.
That's okay. You call me Mike, tell me Mark, just don't
Yeah,
call me late for dinner. I'm doing
exactly.
fine. Thank you for having me on the show.
So I'm interested, first of all, how you got interested in the whole realm of productivity and why
Uh,
that's
it,
important to you.
it started when I was fired back in 2005. And instead of going to get a real job, I don't know what that means, but I decided to become a solopreneur. And I went into wedding and portrait photography first,
Hmm.
and that failed. But the one thing that came out of it, now keep in mind, this is 2005. There's only Facebook and Twitter. Nothing else is around. You could do email marketing, direct mail. But I had this crazy idea, and this is going to be really crazy when I tell you the end story. So I asked one of my friends in my Bible study class, hey, how can I become a speaker to go out and promote my business and give value to people? Now, the reason why that's so crazy for me is I didn't want to speak to an empty room. And now here I am volunteering to be a public speaker. And so that it started getting some traction. But then I said, when the business failed, I don't want to talk about photography. What am I going to talk about? So I invested in my very first coach. Before I did that, I thought coaches was for sports teams, but I invested in the coach, and the coach I normally identify as Tigger from Winnie the Pooh,
Yep.
but I was having an Eeyore day. And my coach goes, what's going on? I said, well, I love speaking and helping people, but I don't know what I should talk about. He goes, why don't you talk about productivity? And I remember saying to him, where did that come from? I'm confused. He goes, I know a lot of people. You are so naturally gifted as a productive person. You should teach that gift to the world. And I was like, huh? And so I became a productivity guy. I've trademarked Mr. Productivity. But the more I think about it, like, where did it come from? I certainly didn't just naturally become productive. I went back to my childhood, and I have to give credit to my late parents. I was a product of the 1960s, 1970s. I was born in 1965. And I had to do my chores correctly on time. Dinner was a certain time. Dinner on Sundays and Saturdays were dinner time. Everything was very structured. I couldn't go outside and play unless my homework and chores were done.
Hmm.
And so I got to give my credit for why I'm Mr. Productivity now, although we didn't know what productivity was back then, for my parents, the way I was raised.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing right from the get-go is whether people are naturally productive or they learn the maybe coping skills or organizing skills early on and then are able to use them correctly. So I guess in your case, it was your parents really created that structure for you. So do you
And
think,
it
yeah,
And it was structured. So back in those days, capital punishment, not to be, capital punishment, corporal punishment, to me as a kid, it was the same thing. I'm like, my parents
right,
are going to murder me. But now
right.
you can't do that. But back then, the words I didn't want to hear was, what do your father comes home?
Oh,
So I made it to age 59, and I was subject to spankings back then. I think it was a good thing. Now, you may not agree with that. It's okay if we agree to disagree. I guess people don't do that anymore.
Well, yeah, I don't agree with that, but I am interested in the fact that the idea of how you get to that place, because I think a lot of people now would want to get to that place without the punishment aspect. So when you think about productivity, I mean, is that the most important thing, even like in a work setting? Is becoming more productive or being motivated to be more productive, is that usually from oh my God, I'm going to lose my job, or I want to excel, or maybe it comes in both flavors?
When I first got to be in the productivity, I literally thought it was all about calendar apps and to-do lists.
Yeah.
Now I understand it has to do with health and wellness, it has to do with mental health, has to do with positivity, has to do with happiness. So I think it's productivity is this big umbrella.
Yeah.
And what do you want to achieve? And I think when people want to become more productive, they need to stop and go, what do I want? Do I want to work at this company the rest of my life? Do I want to work 80 hours a week? Do I want to spend time with my family and my kids? Do I want to go to my kids' ball games? Everyone listening to the show needs to ask themselves, what does being productive mean to me? To me, it's not working 90, $100 a week. That's not being productive. For me, I like to balance time with my wife, time with my dogs. I like European football. We call it soccer in the States. That's what I like to do. And so I think it's unique for each individual person.
Yeah. So then then productivity, it sounds like you're saying that it's partially motivated by how much you're invested in whatever that thing is you're doing. Either you're chasing after more money to help your family or to get whatever you want, or you're intrinsically motivated to like have a podcast, even though that might not, that might not put money in the bank, but it's something that motivates you. So you are more productive, you organize your world around that. But how do you do it when it's stuff? I mean, in every job, there's stuff you don't want to do. And I think most people are aware of the procrastination that almost everybody's a part-time procrastinator. So how do you eliminate
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I've been saying for years that everybody procrastinates. You may not procrastinate a lot, but there are things you don't want to do. I'm an entrepreneur. There are things I don't want to do, and I have to do them because I'm the only one that can do it. I'm the face of the business.
Yeah.
And sometimes some people say power through, but I say if you got to do something, maybe you don't have to do it that moment. Maybe you could do it later this afternoon. Maybe you could do it tomorrow. But a lot of people say it's the next thing on the list. I got to do it. And I'm always asking them or challenging them. Well, maybe if you're not feeling it right now, maybe you go take a break, then come back in because you got to do it. But why don't you do it when you have a better attitude? The worst thing you could do is have a really curmudgeon attitude and say, I got to get this done. How effective do you think you're going to be doing that thing if you're a curmudgeon? If you don't want to do it, you're going to do a bad job at it. And then if you're working for someone else, they're going to call you in the office and say, hey, why is this not done right? So I encourage people to step back. Or if your boss tells you, hey, this needs to be done, say, hey, does it need to be done now? Or can I do it like tomorrow? Because I'm kind of swamped right now. My bandwidth is maxed out. And most leaders are probably going to say, well, no, by the end of the week's fine. But we assume they gave it to us now. It has to be done now. So I just encourage you to ask your leader, when is this got to be done by?
That's a good point. We have a lot of inferred deadlines that we need to better understand. My mother used to tell me, and I've heard the flip side of this too, but she'd always say, get the little easy stuff out of the way first. You might as well just do that because you can get that done quickly, and then you can put the harder stuff on top. But I've also heard experts say, no, get the big chunks done. The little stuff will take care of itself.
I agree with the latter, and I'll tell you why. Because if you've got 10 things on your list, and the 10th thing is really critical to move the needle towards your goals, but the first 9 are really easy.
Yeah.
You can really do those 9 and feel really good. Hey, I got 9 out of the 10 things I was going to do today, but you didn't do the one thing you really should have done. And so you go, well, maybe I should have done the big thing first. It is tough. I can see both sides, but I really believe what Brian Tracy says. You should eat that frog first thing in the morning.
Oh, good. That's not how I start my day. But I think the rationale behind that too is a little bit of the flywheel idea. Is that I find that sometimes if I get going, I kind of self-stimulate, and then I'm like in a groove, and I'm like I can focus and then get it done. But I think the flip side is sometimes you just get, like you say, you get to the end of the day and you get the easy stuff done, and the easy stuff that was not at all important to get done, but you didn't get the big thing done. So when people are trying to get more productive at work, they come in probably those two flavors we talked about. Either they want to get ahead to make more money for their family or for themselves, or the other ones want to make more time for their family. So be more effective at work, whether at home or at work, so they can get back and play and spend time with the kids. Is there a difference in those two motivations to you, or how you would handle that from productivity standpoint?
No, I think we are as unique as our fingerprints, and everyone has got to figure out what is their goal. I mean, obviously you have the people who are single. They're in a camp by themselves. There are people who have kids. They're in the camp by themselves. I and my wife are empty nesters. So you got to look at your situation. Why are you working? So let's say your kids like mine are grown and gone, 30 and 26, living their own lives. So my life is different than when they were at the home. So I think people need to figure out, okay, is what I'm doing satisfying me wherever I am in my stage of life? Maybe you don't want to go to your kids' games. Okay, then it's not important. But maybe it's very important that you go to your kids' games. So you need to approach productivity that way. Maybe it's really important that you get there. You don't care about being with the kids in the morning before school. Maybe your wife takes care of that.
Mm-hmm.
But you really want to leave work at 5 o'clock because it's really important for you to go to the recitals or the games. And so you approach your employer and say, hey, listen, I'll come in early, but I really want to be out of here by 5 o'clock because spending time with my family is really important. So you're still working, you're still being productive, but now you're coming in early instead of staying late. But if you don't tell your employer this, they may say, well, Paul can come in early, stay late, work weekends, but because you haven't said, hey, I got a family too. A lot of people are intimidated to go tell their bosses, hey, I've been working a lot of overtime and I'm missing my kid's life because they're going to grow up and I'm going to regret not spending this time with them.
That's such a good point. Is I think a lot of people, and I remember as an employer and as a boss too, because I managed teams, and before I had kids, I was not gentle with the people who took time off to go spend time with their with their families. But if they had come to me and said, "Hey, I want to do the best job I can. I want to get positive evaluation, but I have these other these other needs that I have to satisfy," I would have been a lot more understanding. But when they just disappear for, a couple hours in the afternoon. And, as a parent now, I understand why they did that. But even if they were, a manager or a director and they were just disappearing or leaving at 5 when you're, a corporate executive, that's not looked on kindly unless you have some sort of rationale. And I mean, maybe it sounds really overly managed to say, even at a director level, that you go to your boss. But if they notice that you're not there, I mean, we're talking pre-COVID days when people actually were at the office. That's a little bit different. But I think that's a really good point. When you talk about, I guess the other thing is I want to talk about was productivity within the family and getting more things done so that at the end of their childhood or at the end of even your life, that you say, we did interesting things. We were interesting people. We did active growth opportunities, style adventures with our kids. How do you think about that? Or how do you think about planning around being more productive in that way?
I'm not a big fan of over planning your family time, but I think you need to plan it. So let me explain.
Yeah.
So your kids are going to grow up and then they're going to be out of the house and you're going to regret. We don't want to live with regret. So I think you should plan time where, okay, Saturday nights, we're going to watch a family movie. Now, this is 2024, so I have to add this. We're going to watch a movie and nobody's going to be on their cell phones. We're going to put the phones on the counter and we're going to have family time. Now, a lot of kids will go, oh, but mom, but dad, they won't appreciate it now, but they'll appreciate it later. Now, some adults have a problem with putting their phones down too. How many people listening to this conversation can watch a TV program without having a phone in your hand? I mean, hopefully that convicts people. But I think you need to plan, hey, Saturday morning, we as a family, we're going to go walk at the park. No phones. I mean, you can have your phone in airplane mode. You can take pictures. You can't be on social media, but plan this stuff. We plan our vacations. Everyone plans their vacation, but no one plans what we're going to do. Are we going to dinner every night at 5 o'clock as a family? Are we going to have a big meal with the whole family on Sunday? Why do we plan our vacations, but we don't plan our family time during the week?
Yeah. I like that idea. I mean, I think some people they know they're going to do like family dinners, for example, and they organically kind of organize things, especially when the kids are younger, for like a movie night. But if you don't plan, especially as they get a little bit older and you are pulled in different ways, there's always that temptation to just do something else. And the cell phones really do get in the way. Are there other activities that we talked a little bit before we got started about trying to set up your family for success in different ways? And one thing I'm working on is value orientation, like how you transmit those values to your kids. Do you see that as something that you can do actively by planning or productifying that experience?
I love that word.
Trademark.
One of the guys I love to follow, one of the authors I like to follow, is Patrick Bet-David. And I saw a video of him recently where everything in his house costs pages. So if the kid wants a toy, you'll say, okay, that's going to be a book. So they got to read a book. Not only read the book that the dad assigns them, but they have to understand what they read. And I'm like, I wish I would have heard about this when my kids were little. Yeah. So you don't give them allowance. you want this toy? It's going to cost you this book. And I'm like, that is such a great idea, because people say, well, I'll just take their phones away. But you got to understand, they're on their phones because they're getting something from the phone you're not giving them.
Yeah.
When you think about it psychologically. So maybe you don't, maybe when the kid says, well, I want a new phone. Okay, well, you got to read these 7 books. If you read these 7 books and you understand by our having a conversation what the books are saying, then I'll buy you the phone. Well, now the kid's going, wow, all I got to do is read these books. Now they're not like, like Jack and Jill go up the hill. They're books that can help in life. I love that idea. And I think everyone should consider applying it to your kids, whatever the age they are, 5 or 15. Say, hey, yeah, you want to go on this, sleep over with your friend? It's going to cost you a book. Now the kids are going like, what? That's so lame, Mom. That's so lame, Dad. But you're thinking about their future. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything to get them to read, yeah, especially when they're fighting with those phones, is a good idea. Are there other things in our family time? I mean, I know most people nowadays wrestle with chores just because the kids, I mean, I guess it's always been a problem getting them to do their chores. And if you are trying to avoid, punishing them for not doing them, are there ways to motivate them? I mean, maybe the book thing is one way, but other ways to organize them to be more productive? Are there tools?
Mm-hmm. I suggest that people consider, instead of assigning chores, make a list of all the chores that they can do. Of course, this depends on the age of your child. And say, okay, here are 7 chores that we believe you can do. You have to pick 4 of them out. This way they have some say in the matter. Instead of just saying, you will empty the dishwasher and you will empty the cat box and you will walk the dog, ask them, say, hey, okay, which one do you want? Now it's not like, okay, they have to do the chores, but now they get a sense of choice. And that may help them be a little more, take more responsibility, take ownership in the chore.
Yeah, well, back to our point about being intrinsically motivated by the stuff that you want to do versus stuff you have to do. If you have 10 things and you pick the ones that are your least unfavorite, there is a chance that they'll actually get them done. Well, I want to know a little bit about your work. I know you have the website, MrProductivity.com. So it's Mr. spelled out MISTER, productivity.com. And you have a newsletter with productivity tips. You also offer coaching services for people wrestling with how to use their time more effectively?
Yes. And what's interesting, even though I trademarked Mr. Productivity, no one has ever come to me and said, I want to be more productive. They come to me and they say, oh my goodness, I am so overwhelmed with my to-do list, with work, with family time, with things around the house. And so they come to me exasperated. Now, I don't have any hair, but imagine someone has hair and it's all disheveled and they look so dazed and confused. So I like taking those people. And the first thing I tell them, Paul, is breathe. Okay. Take a deep breath in. It's all right. We're going to get through this. Okay. This is not unrecoverable, but a lot of people, they don't want to get the help. And I can't overemphasize the importance of getting a coach. Whatever area of your life you have trouble in, I don't care if it's productivity or you want to have better family planning or you want to have, better nutritious meals. There's somebody out there that can help you. So go to Google and say, hey, I need help doing fill in the blank. And you're going to get people that are going to help you whatever situation you go under. You don't have to go through these issues of being a mom and a dad and balancing life alone. There are people out there who will help you. And I specialize in helping small business owners become more productive because I want them to have time with their family. I want them to have a life. A lot of people come to me and they're working 80, 90 hours a week. And they're like, I don't want this because I'm missing all my kids' lives. Well, it's possible. You have to make some changes, but it's possible for you to also have a life and not just work all the time.
Yeah. The great thing about coaching is that you sometimes find those solutions. You figure out what's most important to you and what you enjoy doing. And then you're able to figure out other ways to shuffle off some of the extra work. Like this podcast. I love the podcast part. I love the talking, the conversation, the relationships and everything. I don't particularly like all the uploading and editing and stuff. So I found a relatively inexpensive VA that handles that. But if I hadn't found that or hadn't had somebody helping me find that solution, get comfortable with that solution, I may have given up on podcasting. So it's obviously, as a coach, I believe in coaching in all aspects as well. What are there any other resources? You've got a podcast that is at Mr. Productivity, the Mr. Productivity podcast.
Yes, I recently expanded after many years of people telling me you got to have a video podcast. I don't understand watching two talking heads talking, but apparently it's a thing. So I do have a video podcast. The video goes on X and YouTube and Facebook. And if LinkedIn ever gives me 2 hours of upload, I'll upload it there. And the audio goes everywhere. So it comes out every Monday. And it's just my goal, my heart is just to help people live better lives, because so many people, you can see them, they look like they got the sour look on their face, they're Eeyore, they're doom and gloom. It's like they're not happy. And I'm like, that's not good for you mentally. That's not good for you physically. So I really take joy when I help people get unoverwhelmed and help them to have a life.
Yeah. And having somebody help you through those choices, you don't have to be swimming in overwhelm. There are trade-offs, but if you think you can have it all and do it all, you're sunk from the beginning.
100%.
If anybody's listening that needs like a to-do action item for the week that would challenge them in terms of what we've talked about, is there anything that you can imagine, or is there anything that you tell clients is like an easy way to start thinking more critically about what you're doing and how you're doing it?
Well, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but right now, if you go to my website and you sign up for my free email newsletter, you'll get like a 5-minute video, a training video for free. But in there's a link to get a 45-minute call with me. No obligation. It's my gift to you. So few people take advantage of this. They're like, oh, it's too good to be true. It's not. I'm shocked. I mean, if Brendan Burchard or Tony Robbins gave me a free 45-minute call, I would not hesitate to take advantage of it. But people are like, I'll do it next week. They're procrastinating. So if you go to my website, mrproductivity.com, sign up for my email newsletter, you'll get a link to schedule a free 45-minute call. Please don't just hear my words. It's my gift to you. I don't know how long it's going to last. At some point, I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. Right now, I can do it, but I wonder how many of your listeners will actually do it. So test me out. See if I'm not telling you the truth.
That's a great offer. I do something similar to that. And of course, at least for me, I'm hoping that somebody's going to be like, oh my God, that was the most exciting call I've ever had. And I can't wait to work with Paul and work with me again. But I don't go into it with that expectation at all. Mm-hmm. And like you, it's a gift. I enjoy coaching, as I'm sure you do, and hearing about people's different things. And if they come away, more excited, more impassioned, or less stressed and less freaked out, I mean, it's a good thing that I've done in my life for the day, and I can, feel like a Boy Scout for the next 24 hours and keep on going on. So I urge people, take advantage of Mark's offer and get some good coaching. It'll open your eyes to the way you're working, way you're thinking, even if you don't continue working on, and you just get his newsletter. All right. 100%. Well, thank you so much, Mark. And sorry for butchering your first name at the get-go, but I think I got as a fellish Polish person, I kind of got the last name sort of correct.
Stanley, it's not a problem.
All right. Paul Bannis with GreatDad.com. You can find my coaching and also sign up to do a discovery session with me at GreatDad.com/go. Okay. Until next time. Thanks.